As we talk about this today, I don't want to harp too much on the data. It's easy to talk about. I want to get to the technology, but we need to set the stage. And we're going to talk about the future applications of technology and what it means for retailers. But before we do that, I need to make sure everybody understands one thing, and that's that retailers really aren't as far along and advanced as the perception might be. The perception is that there's this high-minded science going on, and that every decision's cranked through a decision engine, and that it's evaluated and instantly answers pop out. And while that is certainly where things are headed, and there are some players that are closer to that perception than others, an overwhelming majority of the people in the retail world struggle with the fundamental of just even knowing who their customer is. Being able to find, beyond just a survey, who their customer is. If you go in, and as I go in and start working with people, and we look at asking a question, okay, can we get your customer data so that we can start our process of matching that to all that household information we have? They can't even do that. So perception and reality are two different things. I just want everybody to understand that as we go into this and we start having a forward-looking conversation, that a lot of people in the retail world are really in what I would classify as a data ghetto. And they're struggling to even get past square one. As we look at things like wearable devices, smartwatches, does anybody here other than me use activity trackers, a Fitbit, Jawbone Up? I prefer the Jawbone Up, but it's one of these. And man, I'm all into it. I dig it. I'm a data nerd, so really kind of having that personal device tracking what I do, my sleep patterns. And I log everything I eat in there. I scan it in there. Every day I'm looking at my charts. Have I burned more calories than I took in? What's the balance? How much sleep did I get? Does that correlate with anything else in the world? How much do I weigh? All that stuff. I love it. And I think a lot of people too, and that's why you see that category growing. The smartwatches, I know Samsung just released one. I don't think it did quite as well as people were hoping, but I think that's a category, whether it's Pebble, any of the others that you're going to see, these wearable devices like watches, like bands, increase in their capability and their utility for the end user. As inelegant as the Google Glasses, has anybody here worn one of these yet? Because I have not. You have? What were your thoughts?
I had to adjust it quite a bit just to be able to even see it, and then I thought it was cool for like 20 minutes, and then I wasn't as excited about it.
You kind of lost interest.
I think there's it's not, when I first wore it I thought it'd be like really cool, but it's like, oh, there's my emails, there's the weather, there's like some headline that I'm not that interested in. But I think as it gets smarter about who you are and can adapt to you and show you information that you need without you having to search for it, I think it could be pretty powerful. But there's a curve, that adoption curve, that I think is going to definitely be a big impact for Google Glass.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly got to evolve, but you got to start somewhere. But again, that just falls in the category of wearable technology. Running clothes, running jackets with the activity tracker within them. That'd be pretty cool. But and I think we'll have that. You get into appliances within households, so thermometers and smart controls that you see for your house that you may get through even a cable provider or an energy provider. That really does the same thing that my Jawbone Up does. It just does it for my house and helps me control what's going on and run a more efficient household. But all that data being collected. And then the biggest thing of all in automobiles as well, the applications that people use. This is where you really get that velocity and the volume of data coming in. And as a proof point of that, we look at it and pretty soon we're going to hit the tipping point where tech-generated data, so the data from all these devices and applications, is going to outstrip the amount of data that humans actually generate directly through data entry, et cetera, et cetera. So think of these things as always-on devices that are constantly pulling data in and churning data out. Now, so we're creating all these volumes of data with all these gadgets and devices, yet it's less than 0.5% of the data is actually used. So there's a lot of noise out there. There's certainly a lot you can sample, but obviously a lot of it's not being used. One note about all these devices, especially when we get into this category, have you ever heard somebody say, if you're not the buyer, you're the product? So when you talk about the free market, and not like the free capital market, like the market of free things, if you are not paying for it, you are certainly the commodity. You're being bought and sold. And more and more, even when you do pay, you're also a product. So you think about, premium services that you have. You got a free version or a premium version. Well, the data's still being collected on you in the premium version. They're just pushing fewer ads at you as you use it. That's a big point to make, and later on we'll talk about some of the privacy concerns. But this is where this ties into mobile, huge, obviously, no duh. But this is where all the information is. I use Runkeeper when I go running. So I really nerd out. I've got this, and I've got Runkeeper. It tracks where I am. It identifies that I'm a runner. It understands how often I run. It prompts me. I end up seeing ads for a shoe store, Luke's Locker, that operates in Texas, and I go in and buy shoes because they look really cool. That kind of stuff. This is where there's an exchange of value for value, and I had a really great question from Adam earlier when we were doing a video session, and it was about, do you see a day when consumers will be paid for the data that they contribute to the system? And my argument back is that I think that day is already here, and that is not a cash payment or some sort of residual payment that comes in the mail, a check for 3 cents with a 30-cent stamp on it. It's that value is created by the tools, and they're given to you. And if you use them, I'm going to get information back from you. And if you don't see value in what I provide, you're going to stop using it, and that information flow stops. So that there is this exchange of value for value that kind of creates a closed loop, which just has a perpetual flow of data back and forth. And don't forget that there's an open market to buy all this from all these individual providers. So for my friends at Jawbone and the Upband, it's pretty easy for them to, yes, get information about me as a user and improve their product. But when you start looking at, okay, they know who I am, where I am, they can match that up using a service like a provider like me, matching it up to everything else to see all these other dimensions of who I am as a customer, and then couple in what I eat, when I eat, how much I eat, when I sleep, all these other things. There are a lot of people out there that would love to have that information. So they've created a tool of very high utility for me. Some people get these and they try them for a week and they get rid of them. Me, it's helped change my life. I keep using it. I bought a tool and I use a free app with it, and it creates all this data. And really, I think that's probably at the heart of their business model, is collecting that data and building up one heck of a data set of users. So everybody is doing that. So the question being, what are the barriers beyond just cost, really? Cost always a factor, but if you're looking at investments that are going to show returns, and you have test cases ahead of you where people have kind of proven out the waters a little bit, that when done well, this is the return you can get, the cost doesn't become an issue. What becomes an issue is how fast you're going to be able to get that solution, because the people making the decision to invest in this are going to have unrealistic expectations. They read the news, they read the Wall Street Journal, they read the New York Times, they watch CNN, they watch Fox News, they hear about big data, what it's doing, they hear about the family that got something in the mail from Target that revealed that their daughter was pregnant, and they think, everybody's outgunning us, all this is going on, why don't you have this up and running yet? Well, because we just started last week. It's the impatience, it's also not asking the right questions, it's not having a business strategy, which again, you would be shocked how few coherent business strategies there are across the spectrum. I'm not picking on any individual category of retailer. I'm just talking about in general. Chaos kind of rules supreme. and you're adding to that chaos this big giant flow of consumer information that reflects a chaotic path to purchase on the consumer side. SOMO low, social, mobile, local. Really, I've kind of hit on that already. I just didn't call it that. It's that idea that all these devices are there and that retailers are using those now, figuring out how to take advantage of them. Some more elegantly than others. Some people still block and tackle. Some people lose sight on the fact that these abilities aren't about selling. It's about enabling the customer to make all the decisions, to have all the information they need to make the decision to buy or not buy. Done well, that is what all this does. It informs. It's a resource for the customer to be empowered to make the decision to buy. And if you provide good information, good outcomes come out. Being able to track all those devices, the technology, whatever it's going to be, the wearable, I mean, I think it's safe to say that in the next 5 years, I don't know exactly what will and will not still be with us. I don't think Google Glass is going to look like Google Glass. I think it'll be some other thing, a little nicer solution, a little nicer tool. But in principle, it's doing the same thing. It's helping people through their day. It's adding value. And if it's not, people aren't going to use it. I think that trend is going to increase. So I will not put my finger on exactly what that technology is going to be, but I think wearable increases, the ease of use, and all of that is location-based. So being able to, whether you're marketing, hitting people at the right time with relevant messages, it really sets up the ability of this real-time marketing. And I do want to spend a moment talking about that. There is, in the marketing world, a lot of argument about the value of real-time marketing. And I think the majority of the people that I hear discuss real-time marketing associate it with last year's Super Bowl, lights go out, Oreo's Twitter team, very creative, on the fly, was able to push something out in a matter of minutes that everybody got a chuckle out of, and they got a lot of mentions, and it was a really good job of on-the-fly marketing, right? Most organizations couldn't do that, because to be able to do that, you've got to have, like, and you think about a really big corporate structure like that, all the sign-offs, and somebody has to be able to make a decision in that room and go with it. And that's just not too normal in the corporate structure when you look at the way marketing is done. Everything's done by committee and approval, so it's really a hindrance. I don't think that's real-time marketing. I think that's opportunistic marketing. That's no different than writing a blog post that ties in something that went on today in the headlines in the newspaper to your product or your opinion or your viewpoint. It's the same thing. It's opportunistic. So I think people confuse opportunistic marketing with real-time marketing. And for me, real-time marketing is exactly this. It's the fact that a consumer can be seen and understood who they are, and they could be tracked, and it could be 11:30 in the afternoon, we're getting ready for lunch. That consumer is within the trade area of a fast casual restaurant, and they get a message either on social or direct text with an offer, with a coupon for that day to drive them into that store. That is real-time marketing, and it's relevant and it's in the right context. So that real-time marketing spans not just the time, but the place. So location's super important, and that's the biggest opportunity. To get the right message, the right product at the right time and place. It also allows you all this information to dig in and start chasing, you're familiar with the long tail kind of theory, and really from an e-commerce channel, that's where it started, being able to operate at scale like somebody like Amazon, and being able to chase after a very small segment of customers in a very narrow tail. Well, from a marketing standpoint and positioning your brand and engaging customers, you're able to do exactly the same thing. So with all this data, you're able to slice, dice, and dig in, and the opportunity is there to engage every single segment of your customer, not just your core customers. So there's an opportunity as well, and that's where things are trending. Another aspect of this that's really exciting for me and what we do, whether it's the marketing or the real estate planning, is to understand, and this is some of the technology we're working on, being able to track people on their mobile, being able to understand those customers, who they are, just like we talked about pushing out the right relevant message in real-time marketing, being able to see this flow of traffic and start being able to see the patterns in it, folding in weather, time of day, events, seasonality, et cetera, and get some operators down to a day-by-day, day-part, real-time forecast of business that would be accurate enough to plan off of. So just like a weather forecast, taking all these independent variables, which can now, probably pretty soon on the horizon, be brought in, tied together. And if you're a restaurant operator, being able to understand that what's tomorrow look like for the majority of your stores? What is its individual forecast going to be? What does the week ahead look like? Now, what do you do with that information? Well, you manage your inventory and you manage your staffing. And if it's looking subpar, you engage your marketing team to go push those messages right before lunchtime hits to drive more people into the store to make up for the gap in sales. As long as there's relevance and convenience in the messaging, I think that this trend will continue of increasing volumes of information being brought in by tech devices more and more and more and more. Part of the challenges here, and I'm going to get this done in 1 minute. Who owns that data stockpile? Are they going to make the data accessible? And at what cost? Is Mark Zuckerberg going to make the data that he collects in the Facebook environment available to an individual brand? And the answer is no. He's going to make that data available to Mark Zuckerberg. And he's going to do everything he can to amass so much gravity with what he's got on that platform and the value there for brands to go advertise there, that he's going to be the one selling out the data. He's going to productize the whole thing. It's super smart. It's not going to turn into open market data. What that does, when you think about all these different streams of data, you think about there's Fitbits, there's Jawbones, there's iOS and Android devices and app stores and all these different things. The mobile ability to track people and work with network providers on the mobile side and say who are the people, where are they coming, where they work, and follow them on a map throughout the day. You know, all these different data devices and data sources have to be unified. So go back to the very beginning of the conversation when we talked about household level information is the most important thing, that's gold, that's what we provide to be able to help our clients and retailers make decisions. And the same things retailers should be doing, it's a best practice, is getting as granular as possible with the information. It is insanely hard, dirty work to bring in data sources and unify them in that environment so that you can get the most value out of them. And that's one of the toughest questions. There are no pristine solutions for that. I think that's where a lot of the work is being done right now, not just with us, but as we go out and we start evaluating potential data providers, one of the big questions is, how granular can we get it? Can it be beyond an assumption? And can we tie this to an actual customer so we can make it a little more executable and of higher value to the client? That's the biggest challenge in and of itself, connecting all of that. And I have a test case of one of our clients that brought on a new CMO and decided, you know what we're going to do right now? We got a lot of fruit out there on the vine that we're not picking, and it's pretty low hanging, and it's our actual customers, obviously, right? I mean, you want to keep your customers and keep them going and build that relationship. They say it's cheaper to keep the customer than to get new ones. Sure. A year and a half later, what happened to our sales? Why did our sales disappear? What happened? Well, it's because you went through customer attrition, you cycled out customers, you lost customers. You didn't do anything proactively to get new customers. So being able to take this data and run with it in a direction with little foresight to chase the immediate bump and not think about the prospecting side. That is everything I had. And man, we are right up against it at 1 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of your time. I don't have to run right off. If there's questions anybody wants to ask, I'm available. That's what I have.